Ben. Welcome back to the Midwest Model Shop. Got a pretty short episode today compared to the usual stuff. We're going to go ahead and cover the assembly of the two Seahawk float planes on the back of the aircraft. We'll throw together the catapults and then of course the crane and then stick it all on and show you some cool views of the back end of the ship. Nothing too complicated here this time. I really don't show you assembling too much until the end, putting the main parts on, and that's because these pieces are pretty small, a little bit fiddly, but there's nothing super complex or gotcha about them. Anything that's kind of unique, there's like a couple little items for each one. I stop and explain that to you, but otherwise I just put it all together and show you the finished product like I've done kind of in the past. The other thing I wanted to talk about real quick was someone did mention, they asked me on Instagram, hey, are you doing this, the Kingfishers or the Seahawks? And I thought, well, obviously it's the Seahawks. This is a late war ship, and this is later in the war. It's in 1945. There actually were Kingfishers on the back of the aircraft, or on the back of the ship, sorry. I have photographs of them. There were actually, at one point, two on the catapults and one on the dummy car rolling around. And that might have been early on in the ship's career, but later on they moved to the Seahawks. I'm not sure when that was. I do have a picture of them back there also. So anyway, that's what came with the ship, and we're doing this build circa 1945, so it works. Lastly, I saw that in my video analytics, 2% of you out there actually go out and search for my YouTube channel, which, first of all, I want to say thank you very much. It's very humbling to know that any of you watch my videos and like or have anything to say with what I do anyway. I got into this to share my hobby and what I enjoy doing with all of you, and I appreciate the interaction. But if you're searching for me, just to save you a little bit of hassle, if you hit the subscribe button right down here, what that will do is it will save my channel to your preferred channel list, basically. However your YouTube shows up, you'll see my channel right there. If you hit the like icon, the little like button, basically that helps promote my video a little bit, but also it should expose you to other YouTube channels out there that do kind of the similar content. There are other Bens out there in the world. We share kinship. We're not all the same. Not all Bens are alike, but you know, you'll see some similar type of videos. Lastly, the bell icon is just an alert type of thing. If you click that, when I do post a video, you'll get a little notification letting you know that I posted a video. I don't post videos very often. That's not because I don't want to, but I have to work, and then it takes a lot of time to do these little details and put the ship together and then actually have something to film to show you. So that's why it doesn't happen very often. Anyway, that's that. I hope that simplifies things for some of you out there, makes it easier to find my videos. And without further ado, let's get into the build. Alright, welcome back everybody. We're going to start off here on our SC Seahawk. All clear parts, which is nice. These build into pretty nice models. First thing I'm going to do though is get this thing apart and just glue all the main pieces together. But I do want to highlight you're going to have an issue right away. And this is demonstrated really well in the Pontos instructions, where really you just have the wire here for the photo etch detail. But see that seam right there? Yeah. These two fuselage halves don't want to push together very well and stay in place. It's kind of a pain in the rear. But I'm going to go ahead and get it painted up, well, glued together and painted up, and I'll show you what I mean. I put these two heavy-duty clamps on here to hold the fuselage halves together. Despite having cleaned everything up and making sure the seam is nice, it still bows out. Basically, if you pinch the front together, the tail fuselage area comes apart. You push this together, then the engine cowling comes apart. So kind of annoying. I've got some super glue in there and using my Tamiya extra thin cement to let this all set up. Once it's done, I'll take it apart and I'll show you the issue in the back. Alright, so the two pieces are glued together, and actually this worked out. I didn't think that it would right here. This seam on this side, if I drag this across, it doesn't really catch anywhere. I'm shocked. I've had problems before and seen other people having problems before. These are really heavy duty clamps, and it kept both fuselage halves together and let it dry, so I was really happy about that. I'm going to try and halfway be accurate with this. So there's the little tail wheel that's down. I did a bunch of research and looking stuff up. I looked at a gazillion pictures. We're going to go ahead and get rid of that. It's not down during the float wing or the float configuration. There are wheels you can put on this that are accurate for if it's in the float configuration, but not when it's on the ship. But if you do want to have like the landing gear down with it on floats and sitting, you can do that. So let's go ahead and get the rest of this all assembled to the point where we can put some paint on it. Alright, here's the Seahawk assembled, the big parts anyway. I guess I could throw the engine in there too. As you can see though, I left the canopy off because it's clear, and I did not hollow out the area right there for the inside of the flight deck, the cockpit. The reason for that is there's so much on the canopy in terms of little window frames and everything, and although you can see through it, it's transparent. You're not going to see a lot of detail, and so I don't think it's worth the effort this time around to clean this out and build a cockpit tub. So I'm not going to do that. What I am going to do though is go ahead and prime this whole thing in gray, because there's a couple of details that I want to point out to you that are really difficult to see while the whole thing is clear. So let's paint it gray and I'll get back to you. Press on. Alright, so there's our little primer coat on, so you can see all the little details that we've got on our little Seahawk. So I want to point out a couple of things. First of all, we've got a couple holes here and one right there in the back. We also have some mounting holes right here underneath the wings. This was for, I don't want to say bombs. I know this airplane could carry two 500-pound bombs, I believe, and I thought they said they had originally modified the float to accept them. The issue was, in that configuration, there was a tendency to leak profusely, and so that wasn't so great. I don't know if these are bombs. There's these two white canisters that I've seen in photographs to go here. They're provided. I don't want to put those on. I'm going to leave them off. I want this airplane to look pretty clean, so we're going to go ahead and fill those holes. These two holes right here are for the landing gear built into the float, if you were to land this thing on land with the float on. But because I'm going to display them on the catapults ready to launch, those would be retracted. So we're just going to fill those in. Same thing in the back. There's a little tail wheel that goes there. So we're just going to fill those in, and then we can get ready to move on to paint. And we're also going to, after it's painted, we'll do a paint in this area. I'll probably do like an olive drab up on top, and then an area right here. We'll transition to black for the top of the instrument cluster, the dash right here. And I don't know if we'll leave a black or a couple of clever little lines implying the seat and some depth. Just something to provide a little contrast so that when we put the canopy on, it looks like there's something down there in place. So let's fill those up and come back here for some paint. Hello everybody, we're back. Here's our paint that I threw on, and I'm just going to spin this around. See, the bottom here is white. Quick little comments about all this. So the first thing I want to talk about is, if you go online, there are a gazillion little paint schemes for the Seahawk, and they're all kind of like this, and I settled on this one. I saw that between 44 and 45, when these were really kind of in service, 43 to 45, there was the standard 3-color scheme or 3-color paint scheme. So what I did for the darker blue that you see here, this is actually using flat sea blue. I really like this color, flat sea blue by Testers, for the blue on top. The lighter color blue, which I opted for just on the tail and up on the nose just a little bit, instead of running along the whole fuselage there, is intermediate blue. Probably darker than it's supposed to be, but I like the look that it gets. The bottom is the flat white. That's the 3 colors. This was all done with paintbrush. I didn't airbrush anything. And the reason for that is I want there to be some modulation with the paint. I want the tones, as you can see there, to kind of change. I want it to look a little bit worn. I don't want it to look perfect. So that's what I've done. Underneath here, you've got all kinds of options. You can paint the pylon to the float dark blue. You can leave it white. The main float can be blue. It can be white. You could do the float on the bottom the lighter gray instead of the dark blue. It just depends on what you see. Someone will have an opinion of what was supposed to be on the Missouri, but I'm just going to go with this right now. Alright, let's talk about what is happening here on the top. Because I opted not to cut out this area and actually build a physical canopy, we need to create the illusion of a finished canopy. So what I did here is painted flat black on top of the instrument dash. Then this light color green that you see here is green zinc chromate. This is the back behind the pilot seat and the rails along the edge. That brown line there is actually rust. It's pretty bright and robust. That's supposed to simulate the top of the seat back. Then you need to create depth down in here, and the idea there is a slightly darker color green, so I actually went with olive drab. Alright, so then what you do, and we'll just, for demonstration purposes, you paint it up like that, and if you take the little plastic canopy which I got painted, you put on and you hold it like this, and I'll try to get it so you can see. That's what it looks like on the inside. Now, I'm not sure how well this is translating on camera, but for me, in real life here, it's adding depth. It's simulating some pretty reasonable depth to the inside here. And so we'll go ahead and get the canopy painted up here next, the propellers put on, and then the kit supplied decals. Whoops, I was a little worried that the kit supplied decals were too big, and on closer inspection it looks like they're going to be alright. I do have a little number 1 and 2 that I can put right here in the front cowl. I think I'm going to do that. I know there were only 2 float planes on board at most. I don't know what they were numbered, but 1 and 2 seem appropriate. So let's throw that stuff together, and then of course I got some little touch-ups and things to do, and we have to put the propeller on, things like that, and we'll get these Seahawks all wrapped up. Alright, here we go. This is the Seahawk finished, at least what I'm going to do for this video. Propellers all painted up and put on, and then the one and only Pontos photo etch part is this antenna up on the top that you see put into place, and there you are. I did add, I think I mentioned in the previous video, number 1 right there. I'm going to call this airplane 1. There's 2 that go on the ship, and I think it looks alright. Got the decals on, they're a little glossy. Once they're done setting up, I might do a little clear flat lacquer over them to soften that up a little bit. There's a little decal on the bottom. The paint job's not perfect. I'm zoomed in really close. I don't expect yours to be either. There are some people out there who do an incredible job on these little float planes. They are little models in themselves, and they're totally worth the time doing that. I just feel that the level of detail I've got here is more than adequate for what you're going to see in the airplane. Of course, you have to do this twice, so you'll end up with 2 of them, and this one has little number 2 on it right there, and they're pretty neat. So with that all said and done, I'm guessing at this point the next thing to do is build the carriages and build the catapults and the crane to retrieve them with. So let's press on and do that. Very quickly as we move along, we're going to start on the crane. These are the 3 kit parts that you have to throw together and get the base of the crane going. That's all fine and dandy. What I want to highlight here is the bottom. See that square peg? Goes into the hole inside of the deck, just like this. Well, I took this over there and stuck it in, and it fit extremely tight. It was a very good snug fit, and that is fantastic. However, once I have a very fragile and precarious photo etch crane on top of here, the last thing I want to be doing is fighting with installing this on the deck. So I took advantage of this opportunity right now to take my sanding stick and run it around all 4 corners to thin this out. Then I took it back over there. It still fits snug, but it, generally speaking, drops in pretty easy, which is important when we're messing with our finished product on top. So that's my little pro tip. All right, pressing on. First initial section of the crane is bent. I want to try and turn this so that you can see, because it's not clear in the instructions, that we have this open area that would get folded over this way and connect to here. And then we have this spot on top that gets folded over this way and closes right in there. I didn't do that yet, and you shouldn't, because on the instructions, although hard to see kind of from this image right here, you have these parts that all need to be inserted inside of here first. So I just bent it loosely, none of it's glued into place. That will allow me the ability to take these pieces off the sprues, sand them straight, put some glue on and drop them in first. Then we'll connect the whole thing and button it up together, like as you see depicted right here. So I just wanted to point that out before pressing on. So apparently I had a little snafu with the audio and video, but I just wanted to show real quick here the finished product. That's the crane all done up before we go and take it on to paint. Turned out really nice. Nothing too crazy there. So moving along on the instructions, Pontos has for the Seahawk these dummy cars that you can put together. They're primarily used for moving the aircraft around on the deck. We don't want a dummy car. We want a smart car. So down here you've got the regular launch car that you go ahead and assemble. And it's, as you can see there, it's just a few parts. It's not very complicated. So I went and put the two of them together. They look like this. They're pretty nice. There's a couple of little hooks on the very edge that are microscopic, and I don't know how well they'll survive, but there they are. So we just need to get them over to paint with the crane as well, which means at this point we need to start working on the catapults. So let's press on. Moving along, turns out airplanes need catapults to get in the air off of battleships, so we've gone ahead and started them. There's a series of parts that go together with Pontos. This is piece 392 and this is piece 396, and I had a real hard time figuring out, it just wasn't clear to me right away what they were trying to do, but basically you're going to run into where the floorboard here ends up getting attached like so ahead of time on top of the railing like this. You'll glue that down and then you'll bend these pieces up, and that happens several times for the walkways that go around the catapult. And I just wanted to point that out because when I was looking at the instructions, I'm like, man, that is not very clear. So we'll glue all that together and get you some finished catapults, but I thought I'd point out that little gotcha. Okay, so fast forward a little bit here. We've got a catapult together. There was nothing tricky really other than that little part that I showed you, and there's a handful of kit parts, and then you just slap on a bunch of photo etch. And it looks all crazy and complicated, but really it's just a couple of really big pieces on the top. There's some stuff going on up here in the front. This is the brake buffer. I'll zoom in a little bit here. You've got these tanks, and those 4 pieces that you see, the 2 on the outside are just 1 piece, and then the 2 in the middle you just drop in. So it's not even, it's no big deal. You got a bunch of little stuff to put together. You've got this whole little mechanical area here. I'll try and zoom in. Okay, this looks like as close as I'm gonna be able to get to it, but there's a handful of photo etch in there. It's kind of time consuming to press together, to put together. It looks a little complicated, but it's actually pretty simple. It looks cool when you're done with it. That's all the pneumatics and everything you need to launch the airplane down on the other end, get that sled going. Anyway, once you're done with all this, remember that you got to go ahead and you got to make 2 of them, so you have to do everything twice. And yeah, that's it. So we need to get this all over to paint and shoot it all up and cleaned up and put some wear and tear on the top and everything here, a lot of grease and stuff like that. And then we can move on to getting all these parts put on the tail end of the ship. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, we've reached another critical juncture where it is time to put some more parts onto the ship. So let's head on back over here to the fantail. We're going to be focusing on this area, of course. I wanted to point out there's some photo etch details here. I'm going to see if I could zoom in and not lose the shot, that get put onto the base of the catapults. Just some same thing on both sides, and a little access hatch right here on the back. And then yeah, those will have to be touched up. So let's go ahead and figure out getting the big parts on. I've kind of got everything painted up here. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is throw the catapults on. I thought about what are the different ways that I could go about this, but I was originally going to start in the middle and work my way out with the crane, but I may need to actually reach around everything, so we're just gonna do like this. I'm hoping I don't regret this decision because obviously the railing has to go in here, and when I put the planes on, the wings are gonna be sticking out, but I think that'll be all right, and that looks good. So we're gonna do the same thing over here the other side. And these just drop right into place. You just gotta make sure, you can point them any old way you want. I'm just gonna do the normal kind of underway stowed position, following the edge of the deck look. They don't have to be perfect. They just gotta be in place like that. And that looks good. So now we have to put on the smart cars that we'd use to launch off of. So I'm going to do a little pre-fitting here. And these things are like, they're pretty robust while at the same time being really fragile, if that makes sense. So we're just kind of going to pick the position. I feel like that's probably fine. It's not all the way back. You could move it forward if you wanted to. I've seen the aircraft, photographs of the aircraft in a lot of different positions, but I think that that's pretty good. So we just need to get some CA glue on here. Alright, I am using CA glue because this launch car is all photo etch metal, in case you skipped the earlier parts of the video, and we're gluing it onto photo etch metal, the brass on top here. So it's important that you use CA glue, otherwise they'll never hold up. Okay, let's test fit this next one. That car sits right in position also. It's glued up. There we go. That looks good. Alright, let's give it a look-see here. So this is what we've got so far. It's pretty good. Now let's throw the airplanes on. Actually, let's stick the crane on. I think that's probably a good idea. Alright, I've pre-test fit this, like I said before, earlier in the video. You want to make sure that it installs easily enough without running into trouble. Now that's kind of fragile. It actually built up to be really a robust thing. It's a square peg and a square hole, so it's kind of hard to mess up the alignment. What you get is what you get. That's it. Crane is in position. It looks pretty dope. So wow, now all of a sudden we've got a lot of stuff happening back here. It's pretty cool. Let's move on to the next part, and that's going to be getting our airplanes mounted in a position. Okay, so the back of the carriage here holds the skinnier part of the float, and we'll just put some CA glue right here, and yeah, just like so. That looks good. I'm going to double check for level here. There we go. That looks really good. Okay, so now we've got our plane in place. This is the number 2 plane. I just threw it over there. I guess it doesn't really matter. Some of you, I had a gentleman ask me on Instagram about which plane was supposed to go back here, and I was like, well, yeah, these are the Seahawks. You know, that's the year these were in full development at that point. Then I went and looked in my reference book, and of course the early photos of the Missouri, it totally had the Kingfisher on board. And actually one of the photographs, it had 3 of them. They had 2 on the catapults and 1 on their little dummy car rolling around. Alright. Make sure this is straight. Yes, that one's actually a little crooked. Yeah, that's good. That worked out really well. Let's take a look at that. Alright, here we are. The cranes, catapults in position. Now I need to touch up all that photo etch and a bunch of stuff along the edge of the ship here. Actually, like our bits right here, I was like, wait a minute, that isn't painted on this side. I have to touch that up. I don't even know how I missed it. There's a whole bunch of them that run, you know, along the whole length of the ship back here. Apparently on the starboard side I missed all of that. So anyway, there they are. They look good. There's some other details that can be added. For example, there were, when they were kind of stowed in position like this, you had a cable that would run from the base up here outboard to the wing, kind of at the tie downs. And I could try to do that with some easy line, but also might just totally get in the way of everything. So we might wait on that for a bit. Anyway, there they are. Alright, so we got to touch up that photo etch. And the crane also has, in everything I've seen, there's basically like a support line that goes from here out to like a bit or something, just to help keep it from swaying in the seas, I guess, if you were to lose hydraulic pressure or the brake was to let go or something like that. But yeah, okay. Alright, pretty cool. I think we're going to call it quits for now, so we can move on to the next thing. I got to touch up all that paint and get a video together for everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, go ahead and hit that like button down there. I appreciate it, and helps motivate me to keep pressing on and getting more of this done. Hope you're all doing well. We'll see you again next time.